Hi, this is Doug Boone. This video is the part of the instruction series for PetroVisual. I will demonstrate how to use the PetroPlot. PetroPlot is the presentation tool for production, both monthly and daily, and the forecast information, the AC monthly table for PetroVisual. We can look at a tree to click on and select individual wells by clicking on the well name, or you can click on the boxes which adds those pieces together, or you can click on different levels of the tree and have a summary of all those. What is being displayed is all the monthly data, the daily data that's part of the tables, and the forecast. You can even plot and look at multiple scenarios. You can turn data off and on. In this case, we'll turn off the data not related to oil, because this is typically an oil evaluation that we'll look at. And we're going to turn off all the daily information, and then only look at the forecast for the oil. We'll come back and pick up the water there. We can look at individual wells again. We can actually look at individual wells displayed on the graph together by clicking the individual wells and refreshing the graph. Now when we add additional wells to the project, you'll see all those different curves come in the graph, each one reflecting a different shade of green in this case, but it'd be the same if we had gas or water being presented at the same time. And we could add as many curves on the screen as we need to. We could also take and go back to all wells, make a summary of all the wells in, like this case, Enter Plus. So this is 213 wells. And we could also still group it on a standard curve, which is a time-based curve, and show it by groupings. In this case, we'll group by well type. In this database, well type is a data field that's well populated. So we're actually going to see 4 different production curves, in this case all for oil, but show the same data for all the different phases, each one representing a different type of curve. This can also be seen where you can actually display the different data either as a legend block, any location you want to, or you can also label the data field. In this case we have labels. You can click on the right mouse click and move the map back and forth too. You can also zoom in by clicking and dragging across a particular area, or using your scroll bar to scroll in and out to get to the data you want to. And anytime you need to, you can move that data into other applications, either copy it to a file or save it to the clipboard, or if we want to take it directly in Excel, that's all it takes to get it there. This is a full grid control, so we can move columns around and then copy and paste these into different applications. And we can even see the daily that will show up. If I come back to my production curve, we can always come back to my data area, and let's select my daily oil, and there's the type curve for the daily production of those wells, since those wells do have daily production in them. So we can turn off those curves as we need to and look at different curves different ways on different graphs by different groupings, anything we need to from that standpoint. If I go back to a type curve peak rate, we can specify what the peak rate time we would have, and we can specify, because we do type curves in both the daily and the monthly, which value we want to use to pick that type curve, and it'll bring the other ratios with it. Here if we go ahead and say refresh graph, you'll see it's loading this up for the 213 wells, and you can see here that the initial rate comes back up to be initial. Let's come and add our daily value in here again, and you can see the equivalent type curve on a daily basis for those 213 wells. You can do this many different ways, even looking at multiple scenarios. If I was to come back and say, let's look at a standard curve, and let's look at two different scenarios in that standard curve, and say refresh graph, what we'll see is for the oil projections, you'll see the different scenarios that are required. We can also adjust zoom levels. We can default the zoom levels based on all data, both the x-axis or y-axis, or we could specify specific scales that we want to use in both. And that's used as a first look at to bring the data in to view it. All the data for all the summary graphs are included in the tabs, be it all the monthly data, all the daily data, or the forecast data, and this would represent the summary. The same data would apply with the daily and the monthly in the type curves.